Edward's a man who loves rock and roll and Chicago blues. He never quite gets classical music, as so many people don't. He rather dislikes the prim agitation of it, as he describes it to himself.
One of the elements that works the best in this novel, which I think was probably unconscious, is that he describes their relationship in the terms of a musical duet, in terms of a symphony, in terms of these elements answering each other. And that, to me, was probably one of the most elegant metaphors for the book, for the relationship between the two characters.
I had some fun. I thought, since Edward is hearing all about Florence's music, that he would try and lay some of his music on her. And because she's a sweet, obliging person, she's determined to like it and to seem to like it. And so she uses all kinds of words that are entirely inappropriate as far as Edward is concerned. Words like merry and bouncy. He's playing a Chuck Berry, in fact. And then finally, she has to confess she doesn't really like it. And what she really doesn't like are the drums. She cannot see the point of, what's the point of having someone banging to keep time? She says, why don't they get a metronome?
It's impossible for musical notes to sort of layer on top of each other and make one note. There's a blue note in American fiction, but British novelists don't really do that. Ralph Ellison does that. But here, you have notes that are clashing, that are trying to be heard at the same time.
Even though you're right here by my side. One of these days you're gonna find me gone, living way up on Riverside.
The early books were sort of macabre in certain ways. They're wonderful and macabre, but there was dark Kafka-esque quality to them.
As I started to write, Malcolm Bradbury did hand me some marvellous reading lists. I'd been in the grip of Kafka and Thomas Mann, but it was, to me, an enormous liberation to be reading Updike, Roth, Bellow. These figures have really loomed over the rest of my life, really. Norman Mailer, Pynchon, William Burroughs, they all seem to me to represent a wild, free ambition about fiction that I couldn't find in English writing at the time. Sexually daring, hilarious, formally ambitious too.
But you can feel as sort of he grows older, him sort of softening up in the best sort of possible way, in the most open way.
I'm not sure what impact it made on me in terms of what I was writing, but it filled me with the sense of elation about the possibilities of writing. Between Edward and Florence, nothing happened quickly. Important advances, permissions wordlessly granted to extend what he was allowed to see or caress, were attained only gradually. The day in October he first saw her naked breasts long preceded the day he could touch them, December the 19th. He kissed them in February, though not her nipples, which he grazed with his lips once, in May. She allowed herself to advance across his own body with even greater caution. Sudden moves or radical suggestions on his part could undo months of good work. The evening in the cinema at a showing of A Taste of Honey, when he took her hand and plunged it between his legs, set the process back weeks. She became not frosty or even cool, that was never her way, but imperceptibly remote, perhaps disappointed, or even faintly betrayed. She retreated from him somehow, without letting him ever feel in doubt about her love. Then, at last, they were back on course. When they were alone one Saturday afternoon in late March, with the rain falling heavily outside the windows of the disorderly sitting room of his parents' tiny house in the Chiltern Hills, she let her hand rest briefly on or near his penis. For less than 15 seconds, in rising hope and ecstasy, he felt her through 2 layers of fabric. As soon as she pulled away, he knew he could bear it no more. He asked her to marry him. He could not have known what it cost her to put her hand, it was the back of her hand, in such a place. She loved him, she wanted to please him, but she had to overcome considerable distaste. It was an honest attempt. She may have been clever, but she was without guile. She kept that hand in place for as long as she could, until she felt a stirring and hardening beneath the grey flannel of his trousers. She experienced a living thing, quite separate from her Edward, and she recoiled. Then he blurted out his proposal, and in the rush of emotion, the delight and hilarity and relief, the sudden embraces, she momentarily forgot her little shock. And he was so astonished by his own decisiveness, as well as mentally cramped by unresolved desire, that he could have had little idea of the contradiction she began to live with from that day on, the secret affair between disgust and joy.
To see a writer continually sort of get better is really astounding. He has become a better writer as he's gone along. Perhaps a more generous writer, a more deeply in touch and humane in a way.
I think that this book is going to introduce Ian McEwan to a lot of younger readers who haven't yet discovered him. Because, you know, even in these cynical, sophisticated times, everyone who is going to lose their virginity is going to have that awkward moment, unless they're on drugs, which of course is very likely. And I think there's going to be a wonderful reaction to it when people read on Chesil Beach things that they will fear about themselves that are different. They will discover they're not alone.
It's hard to place him because each time that you think that McEwan has done something definitive, like with Atonement, you think, oh, he's a postmodern novelist who has revived 19th century storytelling methods. No, he's not. He does something else slightly different. And right now I know he's working on a libretto for an opera, so it's like he simply goes where I think his interests go.